Welcome to the Medium Rare Podcast. This is WWE Part 2. So Alex is still here, but he is monitoring our camera today. And in replacing him is my dad, who is a WWE extraordinaire.
Yes, a lot of knowledge here. Subject matter expert.
Tucker.
Hey.
And Sahil.
That'd be me.
So I saw you had a little scab on your arm. Why don't you tell us about that little mishap?
Okay, well, it wasn't approximately. It was exactly 4 weeks ago yesterday.
To be clear, my mom is also here.
Yes, my beautiful bride of 26 years. We took a short little trip down to the beach for a good weekend and had some good weather for a couple days, went on a big run for a couple days, and then the third day some cold weather moved in, and it was her idea to go get on the elliptical down in the little gym there in the hotel, and so we did, and she was on the elliptical, and I knocked out a quick mile on the treadmill, and Mother Nature called, so I went and relieved myself, and when I came back, little did I know that this particular treadmill did not stop. It did not. It didn't sense that there was no one on there, and it didn't stop. So, as I put one foot onto the treadmill, I became a 160-pound bowling ball right into a wall. So, if you guys have seen these videos before, they're very funny when you're watching them, but when you're experiencing it firsthand, there is not a lot of humor in it right then. So,
this is a treadmill like up against a wall too.
Correct.
Right? So the back of it is just a wall.
Yes, there was literally 1 foot.
It's just
launches
you into the wall.
So as I put my 1 foot onto the treadmill, I experienced the worst 5 seconds of my life. Got thrown into a wall, bashed my head into the side of the treadmill. Then I became pinned between the treadmill and the wall. So as I tried to get out, I became I just got ground on by a piece of rubber mat going 7 miles an hour. And as I looked up at my beautiful wife with a look of despair, she jumped off the elliptical, reached down, and
Mom just lifts Dad off.
I reached up, she reached down, she grabbed me, she pulled me up, and
puts him on her back and piggybacks him out of there.
But it was really what was really good about it was that my wife and I have a very special relationship, and there are times that I have questioned her love for me. And after the look on her face, I could tell there was so much concern that I told her afterwards. I said, "Wow, man, I feel loved. I feel loved. She saved me. She saved me."
Just to clarify, my dad does not. He doesn't mess up anything. He's very on his toes,
very on point,
very calculated all the time. So Dad even falling is kind of a rare moment. Him falling on a treadmill is even more rare.
It doesn't happen.
We were at the gym today, and I was doing my pre-workout poop, and this show just always ends up being about poop stories and stuff.
We should do an episode or two
just
on
about poop.
Yeah,
we'll do a whole research.
I could come back for another opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. Why does it happen?
We were pooping, or he came in. He pooped next to me, and I had just texted. There was a guy in there who whatever he was pooping was radioactive, because I could smell it in the locker room, which is very far from the toilet he was in, and then walking in was just like a
like
brick
you just walked
wall.
into some rads, like in Fallout or something.
Fallout, yeah. It's got my radiation poisoning.
No, it like fogs your head. It really did.
But it smelled like he ate diarrhea. It was very bad. But no, I was just sitting.
He was recycling it. I mean, he ate it and then it was coming back out.
You get all the nutrients.
Yeah.
But Sahil came in and sat next to me, and in the group message he said, "Hey Brett, I'm right next to you." Like I didn't see his shoes were right next to me. And then I got a text while I was on my phone and said, "Brett, listen." And then as soon as I received the text, I just heard just a little bitty little tiny one. Oh, it was so funny. That, and then why don't you tell, if my man bought groceries in like $100 worth of $1 bills.
Well, like when you go to when you break a 20 or a 5, you keep the 1.
Yeah.
Because, you don't go like grocery shopping and just give out a bunch of 1s. But all those 1s that I've accumulated over time, I just had to use them. And Brett posted it on his story. the guy wasn't so happy. Actually, I was going to give him a 20, but he was taking his sweet time this morning. So I was like, he can count all these out.
Yeah, green's green, man. It all spins the same.
No,
Right?
it was funny though because me and Sahil were very late today, and everything was stacking up against us because we were at the grocery store. Not only were we behind a very
Slow person?
high-ranked, "Can I speak to your manager?" type lady. So she wasn't like a middle-aged woman who says, "Can I speak to your manager?" This is an older woman, so she's got a lot of experience in the "Can I speak to your manager?"
Master
A lot of
Sergeant.
experience in bitching.
And
She's a
yes,
master sergeant
She was trying to
in it.
buy something, and she saw a different price for something else completely different. And she's like, yeah, I saw a different price.
that's not right. And so another person went over there and checked, and it was for a whole different thing. And so me and Sahil, in a hurry, stood in line for 10 minutes for no reason at all. And so we're frustrated. Another lady comes over and she's like, "I'll get you guys over here." So I walk over there. Sahil already had his stuff on the conveyor belt. And this other lady behind me just jumped in, and Sahil was just like, "All right."
Really?
And I was upset.
And then I had to wait for him in the line at the end of the line. And this, of course, the cash register guy was like the sloth from the Zootopia movie where he's just like
Reaching.
grabs it,
so annoying.
scans, sits
And he was
it
trying to make
down.
conversation with me.
I know, and Sahil was like, "We're in a hurry. I got a $20 bill. I'll just break this $20 bill." And this guy was taking so long. He's like, "No, I want this guy to have to count it out. I don't like this guy at all."
It took him a minute to count it, too.
Well, we're going to cut this intro stuff short because from what I hear, Tucker has got very thorough research.
I mean, so we're just going to jump right in?
There's a lot to cover. I mean, the Attitude Era.
WWE Part 2, we're going to cover the Attitude Era. But also follow us on Instagram at the Medium Rare Podcast. You can see proof of Sahil's story from last week's filler episode where he talked about peeing on a DUI.
Actually, that was my second time.
Was it?
That was my first time I talked about, and then last night was my second time.
Oh, you did it. That was from last night?
That was from last night.
I thought that was an old video.
No, that was from last night.
Okay, well, apparently Sahil's got a tendency of just peeing on DUI schools, so
Man, it was real cold, and the place was closed, so I was
Did you
like,
see my comment?
we put it on our store.
No, not yet.
You didn't see
No.
it?
We'll check it. Well, we were in a hurry,
Yeah,
but
definitely. It's. I was very curious as to why, but just read it later. And
we
you'll
put
find
it
out.
on the Instagram page. So not only is he, his stories are correct. He does pee on DUI schools. If y'all want to check it out, so follow us at the Medium Rare Podcast on Instagram. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. We also keep our email in the description box below. So if you want to send us some emails, we'll answer some questions. And then what else? We got a Facebook page, Medium Rare Podcast.
Actually bumping right now.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, we
Getting
got
a lot of likes, so
we got
hop
about
on board.
100 likes this week. Yeah.
Hop on board the train.
yeah.
And a Twitter
Um,
coming soon.
Yeah, and send us some comments if you guys want to, tell us how you feel, what you
Yeah,
want
just
to talk
tell
about.
us about your day.
Yeah,
something.
honestly, just
Communicate.
whatever you
just
want.
say hi.
Emojis work too.
We're lonely.
Just a thumbs up.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, into the WWE. What is this? The 80s to the 90s.
So now, okay, so from last week we ended with the golden era, which was towards the beginning of the 90s.
Okay.
So for this, before we get into the Attitude Era, I want to go into the New Generation Era, which is just kind of like a step into it. But so at the start of the New Generation Era, it was a little not very good
Wait,
when it comes to what happened. So
around
like in
what year is this?
91.
Okay.
So like this is like in between the end of the golden era and then going into the New Generation
So
era.
who's like
Mhm.
the face of the WWE? At this point?
New Generation is like Hulk Hogan,
Mhm.
Roddy Piper, like all of them are still like there's still people from the 80s that are still wrestling, kind of like towards the end of their careers in a way.
Those guys are actually starting to fade out.
Yeah.
They're like at the end. They're at they've peaked and they've come.
They'll
down the
come.
other
Some of them.
side.
Some of them
Yeah.
do come back though. Like Hulk Hogan comes back like in
Mhm.
the early 2000s.
Yeah,
for,
that's
like,
when
and
he's a heel.
Yeah, and he's
right?
still he's definitely old at this point.
Yeah.
Well, at that point he's still definitely old.
He
But
really doesn't become a heel till he goes to WCW.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. when
Well, he said
becomes
the
Hollywood.
2000s, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's when he's in. But we'll get to that.
No, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that
That's
one.
when he started making children's movies.
Yeah, and a different kind of movie too. I think he got in trouble.
Yeah, that was
A different kind of movie.
Oh yeah,
That was,
yeah. Hulk Hogan's not doing too hot right
A
now.
little bit of a blue
We're
movie.
getting
2010s.
very liberal with the N word out here.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
more.
but to start like the New Generation era, there was some stuff that started to come out with steroid use in the early 90s, and a lot of wrestlers like Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper, Brian Blair, Dan Spivey, like a lot of these, they were supposed to testify against him, against Mr. McMahon, because there were some issues with steroids coming out, saying that many people were pressured
That's good for business,
into taking
though.
them.
But that's good for business.
It's good for business. Yeah, so...
well, back then it was just like steroids, cocaine, no sleep, and wrestling.
Yeah, it was a
basically-
rock and roll lifestyle.
Macho Man,
and it is
Randy
really,
Savage.
and that was when it really started transitioning into that rock and roll lifestyle. They
Yeah.
did.
It was definitely, just from researching it, it's definitely a big issue. I mean, even I'm pretty sure even today.
There's
I'm not
stuff
saying
going on in the 80s, but that was really, it's really starting to,
Okay.
people started to get in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part. It was a WWE physician, George T. Zahorian. He was being charged with illegal distribution of the drug, and he worked for the WWE.
Just as selling drugs, selling.
He worked as
steroids?
like physician for the company. So they were like,
So
they
he
would
was
come in.
prescribed.
They would come in there and be like, oh, you should take this.
yeah.
Even without having to need taking steroids,
Yeah.
they would. But a lot of, of course, I'm not saying that all of them did, but some of them probably did. Maybe not getting pressured. Like one of the wrestlers named Nails.
Nice.
His name's Nails. Yeah, with a
So
Z at the
metal,
end
dude.
too. It's with a Z. So it's
So
Nails
metal, dude.
with a Z. He actually said that Mr. McMahon did pressure him into doing it.
I mean,
And then
Mr.
the whole-
McMahon is definitely.
Well, I should say it's-
heavy on some stuff.
Get on the gas. That's what he told him. Get on.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what they called it. Was
What?
gas.
He said what?
Nowadays, it's a little different term for gas, but yeah, get on the gas. But Hulk Hogan said that he was never pressured into it, but that many wrestlers did take it at the time. So, I mean, that's why I was saying, you could see some of them. They looked a little bit more ripped than usual. Maybe maybe in like a month, you see one wrestler 1 month, and then the next month they're like jacked.
Yeah,
You're
you
like,
could
oh.
tell, just watching. I mean, me and you watching Triple H and stuff. You could tell when he was on and off his cycle because it would be like weeks he would be just shredded, and then a couple weeks would go by and he'd
Be a little
shrink and get a little
puffy.
puffier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But another thing, Hogan never had to be pressured into doing anything like that because he was on it way before.
Oh, yeah, he was before
I mean, he was
hype train, he was on it.
rolling hard in the 80s.
Same
so,
with
yeah.
Macho Man.
Oh,
Man.
Macho
Man wasn't as big because you can just tell from watching promos of how much he was doing and how much.
Yeah, let me tell you something.
What was he? Oh, Did you ever watch that Jake the Snake interview on Joe Rogan?
No, I hadn't yet.
Okay, he
I
was
hadn't yet.
talking about Macho Man, and Macho Man apparently, and me and you talked about it too, is how he just was Macho Man 24/7, never
yeah.
broke character.
Yep.
And Jake the Snake was talking about how
Hey, man, what you
yeah,
what
Jake,
you doing?
he had a live snake that he would use that he would attack people with on stage. They would get their poison glands removed. And I told Dad about it. I think I told you about it too. But they would get their poison glands removed, and so they would actually bite people. And Macho Man was like,
Listen, man, I need that snake to bite you in the leg, brother.
and he was just like, what? He was like, I need it to
bite you. I need to watch you get bitten by that snake.
and he was just like, I don't. Why?
It's just a bit.
And he was like,
I don't know, man. Macho Man's got his Intercontinental Championship, and if somebody tries to take it, well, then who knows what's gonna happen?
Could you imagine being with him at Thanksgiving dinner? He doesn't break character.
Pass the cranberry sauce. Yeah, the cream always rises. The cream rises to the top.
He just here.
but no, Jake the Snake made he made him get the snake to bite him in the leg. He shook the snake to piss it off and just threw it on his leg and made it bite him in
Are
the
you
leg.
happy, Randy? You happy?
Yeah. And then Randy was like, oh, hey, we waited 10 minutes and he was just like,
All right, that's good then.
and just leaves.
It's just a bit, Randy. If that's your real name. Are you Randy? What is your name?
Macho Man.
Okay, Macho Man. But yeah, so steroids.
Yep.
That's
so
it.
anyway,
That's
steroids.
steroids. So with all this issue of steroids at the time, so they went to trial.
Yeah.
So the doctor, I believe he actually did end up getting in trouble. But when they put McMahon on trial for, pressuring people into taking them, he was actually acquitted of all the charges against him for trying to pressure him into it. And he said, of course, this is like McMahon style, is the good guys always win. That's what after the trial was over. So
He walks out of the courtroom.
he's doing his little wall.
Doing his walk.
You're like, what are you doing?
If you guys don't know anything about Vince McMahon, just watch him
Just look
walk
up Vince
down.
McMahon
Yeah.
on YouTube. Just
Dude,
watch,
you will
watch
get-
Conor McGregor. That's who
Yeah.
McGregor got
Basically,
it from.
Yeah. That's who
basically,
he
but
got it
Conor
from.
McGregor isn't a character. That's just who he is.
Yeah.
I have. Do you have anything on Scott Steiner by chance?
I think he's mentioned, but I don't really go into depth.
All right. Well, I've got something I want to play for the audience whenever we get to Scott Steiner.
Okay. I think he's just mentioned to him, but what I'm trying to think of the era. He's in the Attitude Era, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we
and-
get to it, and we start talking about some wrestlers. We'll talk about Scott
Okay,
Steiner for a second. You
because
can play
there's a great video I want. It's like a minute long that everybody needs to hear. You know what I'm gonna play. Me and Dad. Listen.
This is the counting one, right? Oh yeah, no, that's
He
a good
does
one.
math problems.
Okay, so
I really.
it's
just
a good
want-
one.
It's good.
That's a good one.
It's classic.
Well, Vince McMahon's. I know this is a little bit later, but he started the XFL and he's bringing that back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard about
Yeah.
that. heard
Yeah,
about
I was
that.
gonna
Starting
include
up
that in
next
this,
year.
but because it was so bad, I didn't even was like not even worth mentioning.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah, it is
it's
coming
gonna
back.
be less corny this time, apparently.
Mhm.
So
He's going to try and make it more, to go one-on-one with NFL.
and
Go.
I think what was the big something made it controversial. I think it was no one can kneel. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Like he's
you
laying
kneel,
down
you're
ground.
out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's laying down some ground rules. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I lost my train of thought for a second. What I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Okay, but after all the trial and after he's of course the McMahon, the good guys always win. It was actually a lot of bad press for the WWF at the time. So he was trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we combat this, bad press? So he started to push younger talent into the spotlight. So by the mid 1993. Bret Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Razor Ramon, Diesel, Lex Luger, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Crush, Avatar, and there are a ton of others.
Yeah.
Here's one of the big names like that most people probably now, even if they don't know wrestling,
Mhm.
probably recognize some of these names. So like
Mhm.
Bret Hitman Hart, that's everyone knows.
So I'm named
Yep.
after.
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, with one T and not.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. We
threw-
just spelled it
through
different.
two on
Yeah.
Because
I'm better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two T's is better than one.
That's right.
Am I right?
That's right.
Good guys always win.
But they were branded as, this is like where they were all, this new people started coming. This is branded as a new generation.
Yeah.
So, that's Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, which are two really big names that lasted until just recently,
Mhm.
But Hulk Hogan would actually end up leaving the WWF in the summer of '93.
Okay.
And Hart would become one of the more popular stars of this period.
So he's like the face now.
Yeah, Bret Hart ended up becoming the face now. In '94, WCW signed Hulk Hogan. So he left, and then immediately after was
Went
signed
right
by
to
WCW. And they signed Hulk Hogan and other former WWF stars and launched Monday Nitro on TNT to kind of like fight against them.
Did you
And
watch?
the only reason why I'm even mentioning them is just because WCW is because, spoiler alert, they become part of the WWE.
Yeah.
That's why
So
I'm
I'm
talking
assuming
about
you watched Nitro back
Oh,
in
absolutely.
the day. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it. What did you
Watched-
like better?
Really Nitro at first. Nitro was better at first because they didn't have to develop anybody. Everybody was already developed. Yeah, let's just stick that in my mouth.
Oh, well, that
Okay.
needs to be.
So when Nitro came out, they already had established characters because they pulled everybody from WWE. So those guys were ready to roll. So they just took off and went with it. Whenever you have an unlimited pocketbook, you got unlimited funds. You can do a lot of things, and they were able to do that. At that time, that's when Vince McMahon was trying to develop those characters. So, the Monday Night Wars, that's how they began because WCW took, they were able to establish their product quick and early and took off with it. And WWE, WWF, they were having to grow it. So it took them, they had a down couple of years before it really took off. And, that Attitude Era it pretty much started rolling around 95. That's when it really started taking off, And one of the most, and this is something, this is not one of the main characters, but Goldust. Goldust
I
was
love Goldust.
really one of the first characters where they started, putting their toe in the sand on the other side a little bit and saying, okay, maybe we may step away from this PG product and go to a little bit more of an adult content. And they started that with Goldust. And Brian Pillman, when they started Pillman, because Pillman, one of the first gimmicks that he did one of the episodes, he pulls out a gun. and he was going to go, he's going to go take care of somebody. So, you've got, all right, an adult-themed character like Goldust. You got Brian Pillman, who's turning into the loose cannon. The loose cannon is what, his gimmick. And then he's pulling out a gun on, so it was, but that's what got him rolling. That's what
Fun
got
fact
WWF.
about Goldust, his daughter was born on the same day in the same hospital as me.
Yes.
Yeah, and Dad got to meet him while I got born. So
we were actually, we were at George.
I got born and stuff.
Yeah, well, can we mention the hospital's name? Maybe?
Do you...
Is it even still around?
Not. Okay, so we were at a hospital, and we had to go on. It was one day during the week, so it was a Wednesday night. We had to go for a birthing class. And Dee and I were sitting in there, and, we're just talking and chit-chatting, 3 or 4 other couples, and all of a sudden the door flies open.
He kicks the door open.
You see this little tiny, very attractive, petite woman walk in who's pregnant, and then right behind her, this guy walks in, and he was legit 6'6", because he comes in,
Goldust is a big
and
dude.
he ducks his head to go in the door, and I was like, holy crap, that's
He's
Dustin
got his
Rhodes.
gold and black paint on and his gold suit.
I was going to say, is he all painted up?
I looked over at Dee and I said, that's Dustin Rhodes. And I said, we're about to have fun. So we actually went through the whole birthing class, and they took us for a tour of the hospital, and I actually hung with him, and he really was like a superstar that night. I mean, everybody in the hospital, nurses, everybody from the cleaning people, they were in there still going, hey, what's going on, trying to get his autograph and everything. So it was really cool. After the class, we went to the parking lot, and they were parked close to us, and of course he had a brand new red Corvette. We sat there and hung out with him and talked to him, got to meet him, got to know him. Very cool guy. Very cool guy.
Awesome. Mom said that, or Mom was just gesturing that you talking to him was like...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He towered
now,
over
you. When you're talking 6'7" and 5'7", there's a little bit of a gap there.
He would just carry you in his arms.
Yes.
In one arm. He just
yes,
had
he could have.
Dad was
He
just
practice,
like, tell me about the
practice
WWE.
like holding the baby. But just
yes. Excuse me.
Tell me more about the
Goldust.
WWF.
Yeah, Mr. Reynolds, will you please hold this gentleman right here, Mr. Owens? Sure.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, no, I love Goldust. And for those that don't know Dustin Rhodes or who his dad, Dusty Rhodes, I'm sure a lot of people probably understand that, but just in case it's lost in translation, they come from a wrestling family, and they also have another brother, it's Cody Rhodes, who wrestles for like.
He's independent now.
Yeah, I think it's like, I was like, what is it? There's a lot of like little wrestling.
But he's doing a lot with New Japan, Ring of Honor. Yeah,
he's doing really good for himself. But
yeah.
So back to the new generation. It's kind of towards the end of it, like he said, kind of like 95.
Yeah.
So by mid-1996, there was the introduction of the New World Order, in WCW, which is a stable led by former WWF wrestlers. It's Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon at the time, he played that character, which he played both. And I remember playing a wrestling.
Hey, yo, listen, me and Big Kevin here, we hear you talking, and we don't care. Hey, yo.
But I remember playing a wrestling game, and you could play as both.
If I don't get casted as Scott Hall in a movie, I should just die.
You should.
There's nothing left for me on this earth.
But and then also Kevin Nash, which he went by Diesel. I mean, they had like two characters that I think it was more of he was Scott Hall in WWF.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was Razor Ramon in WCW. Like they were formed on Nitro, which WCW. It started 2 years after the ratings domination that Nitro really started to put out after they created like New World Order and stuff like that. Like he was saying, he started to actually enjoy the start of Nitro better than what Raw was doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there were actually a lot more talent from WWF to go to the WCW, like Ted DiBiase, Kurt Hennig, reigning WWF Women's Champion Alundra Blaze. She was in WCW.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1-2-3 Kid. But like Bret Hart decided to stay with WWF in spite of a really big offer. WCW offered him to basically be the face almost.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm already the face here, And I guess he probably just didn't want to lose the money from going one contract to the other, So he just decided to stick around.
And
Plus,
Vince McMahon, even at that time too, Vince McMahon made him an offer that he did not make anybody else. Like his offer was so much more. I mean, it was 3 to 4 times what everybody else's contract was. He signed him to a huge contract, and not to get too far ahead, but as you would see later on when Bret Hart did go to WCW, McMahon was kind of urging him because he had already built up so much. I mean, he's a great promoter, so he'd already built up a year and a half, 2 years later, he's already built up that other talent. So he says, okay, you know what? In not so many ways, he wasn't kicking him out the door, but he was trying to nudge
just
him
showing
in that
him, like,
direction.
this is where you can go this way.
Exactly. And, you know, and then Bret Hart did. He went down there for a big paycheck.
Okay,
An even bigger
Is
paycheck.
Owen Hart? I guess Owen Hart's still alive at this point.
at this point, I think.
Yes. Yes, he is.
Okay, so like after that offer was kind of given to Bret Hart, in WWF at the time, they created a new match called Hell in a Cell, which was at Bad Blood in Your House in 1997, and that was between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. First ever Hell in a Cell match ever. And Michaels actually won the match against Undertaker because of interference from his Undertaker's storyline brother, Kane, which they used that for years that they were brothers. The Brothers of Destruction.
Kane is now mayor or
Knox
governor?
County. He's
Yeah,
the mayor of Knox
Knoxville.
County.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yep.
is pretty cool.
What is
Yeah.
up with all the WWE superstars going into politics?
It's like
'Cause
Jesse Ventura was in California.
Jesse Ventura.
Well, you know, but a lot of those guys are. I mean, they're extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, most of them, I mean, they've got strong academic backgrounds, and
Yeah.
they know, hey, you know, they've already got the name, the face. It's all out there. People know them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, they've been
I
promoted.
mean,
in
Donald
marketing.
Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Donald Trump was in the
Donald Trump's in
WWE.
the Celebrity Hall of Fame in WWE. You
Yep.
know, he's on the celebrity one. or in
Not
the
a single
celebrity wing.
president has ever drop kicked. Or wait, what did he do?
He
tackled
sh-
him.
he
He
tackled
tackled
Vince
Vince
McMahon,
McMahon.
and
Yeah.
then he also shaved his head.
They
Yep.
had the hair versus hair
I remember
match.
that.
Yeah, that was a classic. I actually have.
Fond memories.
And you
Yeah,
know,
I have
when you're
very
speaking
fond
when you're
memories.
speaking to Shawn Michaels, another thing too, going back to Razor Ramon, you know, if I'm not mistaken, him and Razor Ramon had the first ever ladder match. So you know, he was Shawn Michaels in himself was. I mean, he was a trendsetter, no doubt.
No, yeah, he was definitely a big part moving into the Attitude Era, which
Yes.
is after that Hell in a Cell match that kind of triggered the start of, you know, like it was building up in '95,
Yep.
like you said.
Yep.
But like after that match, they were like, oh, a lot of people like this edgy
Yes.
Hell in a Cell, you know, like blood and all this other stuff matches. So they
I'm
were
just
like,
imagining a 2-person WWE podcast called Tuck and Dad, and it's
Oh,
just
man.
'cause
It
that's
would
basically
take
what
off.
this
It would
is.
take off. And I've got a couple of buddies of mine that literally they make me and you look like we know nothing.
Yeah,
They are an encyclopedia.
That's
It's
what
Just
this-
full of wrestling
unbelievable.
knowledge.
This
Yes.
is really
What
just
more
me and-
knowledge do you need?
Yes.
This
I
is
mean,
really just me and Sahil listening. to you.
nodding your
No,
heads.
I don't want it to be
No,
like
no,
that.
no. It's all good.
We
It's
want it
all
to be
good.
inclusive here.
This is a very inclusive podcast.
Yes.
All wrestling types.
Yes.
The ones that don't know anything and the ones that know a lot and then maybe that know some. That's it.
Observing.
As long as you throw in
Just getting all
comments.
this information.
You know,
you got
another thing too is that also like you started getting in. They started really blowing up that tag team division. So you've got the Dudleys. You've got coming over from ECW. They brought the Hardys in, and when I saw the Hardys the first time, I said those guys will never do anything. Man, I couldn't have been any more.
Yeah, they're still
wrong.
around now.
They're still
20 years
huge,
later.
Huge. I mean, they're two of the. But they were literally. I mean, they're up there with the Road Warriors. I mean, one of the best tag teams
The
of all
Dudleys?
times. And
No,
the Dudleys.
well,
I mean,
yeah.
no, actually the Hardys.
The Hardys, okay.
But
I
then
love
they
the
brought
Hardy
Christian
Boys.
and Edge in at the same time and really started pushing those young guys.
Yeah. A lot of those guys we'll get to probably in the next episode. They're real big
Yeah.
into ruthless
Yeah.
aggression. That
Yeah.
era is like real, like, I guess more modern
Yeah.
for the younger, like maybe like my generation when it comes to
Because
like
those
being-
guys really started coming in late 90s, right towards the end of the Attitude Era.
And the Dudleys always reminded me of like two villains from like a.
They're like goofy, like Looney Tune looking.
They
villains.
remind me of Bebop and Rocksteady from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but if they were human.
Love the Dudleys.
But okay, so like with the beginning of the Attitude Era, like I was saying, basically Vince McMahon responded to WCW's big success by taking the WWF in a different direction with more realistic characters and edgy storylines. Rising stars included D-Generation X, which was Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Rick Rude, and
That's when it
China.
really got edgy.
Yeah, Rick
Yep.
Rude and China. China's a good.
Oh
good
yeah,
one.
China's got some good content on the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
she
just
does.
don't look it up.
Yeah.
Just don't look it.
If you
Just
just
don't
check
look
out,
it up.
if you check out A Night in China, I think that's like her best film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a WWE Studios film.
It's produced by Vince McMahon.
And then also one of the biggest ones, which of this time, but there are probably two, but one of the bigger ones is Stone Cold Steve Austin was also introduced around this time, which his popularity began in 1996 at King of the Ring, where he won his match in his famous Austin 3:16 speech.
If you ever want a good laugh, you just look up Stone Cold Steve Austin listing things.
And I think when you were talking about Jake the Snake earlier, I was thinking too that when that King of the Ring, I think Austin and Jake the Snake were going at it at that time, and he hadn't taken off. That's what obviously set him off but I'm thinking that it was Jake the Snake in a promo started reciting a couple of Bible verses, and then that's what sent, you talk about your Psalms, and he quoted, a scripture or something, and he said, I'll tell you what Austin 3:16, I'm going with Austin 3:16 says, I just kicked your, and then
you can say
the
that
best.
word.
Yeah.
You can say that word.
I can, but I'm going to choose
He's
not
going to choose not to. No, but Jake the Snake.
Speaking of PG content, we're going to try and tone this one down a little bit.
Okay, but no, Jake the Snake, his promos were incredible. Some of them were really good. He said that his best one on that Joe Rogan interview, he was just like, well, our audio listeners aren't going to know what I'm doing, but he would just get on the screen and they'd be like, you got anything? And he was like, yeah, I got something. And they were like, all right, go. And he was just like, and then they were like, Jake, we don't know we can't hear you.
What are you
He's like,
doing?
He's like, no, yes, you can. Hey, did you turn up the TV like I asked you to? Or whatever, because he was just mouthing his words or whatever, and it was like he was trying to be meta and be in your world as well as his.
He had that ability, like so many of the good ones, where you would get almost, and I'm not saying hypnotized, but you would get so engrossed. I mean, like he could go on for 15 minutes, and you were tied in with him the whole 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman's another one. Paul Heyman, I mean, he gets going.
Paul
and you're
Heyman,
all
you can
in.
he just talks, and then it's just like
His
a snowball.
gets so like a little bit.
Well, now,
sometimes.
but his
nowadays,
and a lot of the tone of his voice, he can move that tone in
Yeah.
and out. And it's he'll bring
like he
you in,
can
it'll
tell
pull
when
you
he's
in.
losing you, and that's when he'll start
he'll
shifting.
just scream really loud.
Yeah,
man.
yeah, and you'll get back on it. But like if you watch his the documentary about him, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of, like people that could like captivate, like you were saying about like Jake the Snake, and more like popularity wise.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny? What you?
Alex I'm just tired, so Alex texted me stop yawning, and now that I'm thinking about yawning, I can't stop yawning.
But, so like like I was saying, Austin kind of had that same kind of deal with it, where he actually was like Jake the Snake was a villain, of course.
Yeah.
And Austin started off as a heel,
Mm-hmm.
but his popularity literally made him go from a heel to almost the face of the company at the time. Well, split face, which we'll get to that. But yeah, so like that whole deal of just the popularity, even though he was supposed to be a bad guy, everyone just liked the bad guy, so they used that to their advantage.
Stone Cold.
Yeah, so they used that to their advantage and turned him into one of the.
Can I get a
faces.
hell yeah?
And everybody loves a good redneck. Man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, and he could talk
The
it,
Texas rattlesnake.
Yeah, and then so this is to signify the start of the
What?
Attitude Era.
You're supposed to keep going.
Intimidating
That's
me.
part
like
of the
that.
bit,
Yeah, I
dude.
know you're intimidating
Don't
me.
scare us
What?
like that.
So at Survivor Series in November of 1997, the WWF debuted like the scratch logo. It's the first time they ever debuted it, and that's basically what stuck even today. Of course, now it's not WWF, it's WWE, but it's still the scratch logo, and it's stuck ever since.
It was
But they would use this whole one through the Attitude Era, and then
So,
on
Is the Rock in? The Rock's there now.
Rock
right?
is there now. We're
Yeah.
we talk about him. We're going to talk about him in just a little bit,
Okay.
but he's definitely in this era. Him and which of course him and Austin.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
think between like Limp Bizkit.
they actually
Stone
did a
Cold Steve
promo.
Austin.
They did a promo.
We
with
posted
him.
on our Facebook page. Limp Bizkit, Steve Austin, and The Rock. That's kind of like the whole '90s right there.
That was like I think
Yeah.
one of the
Need to know.
biggest promos ever was between their match with Limp Bizkit as like the song. It's like
God,
I
that's
can't remember
so-
what the song was. It's like 97, 98 or whatever. That got everyone riled up.
Yeah.
Everyone drank a beer to that one.
Yeah.
Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah.
Thank you
So
for the
you were just a
enthusiasm.
baby- just a baby when all this was going
I know.
on, man.
I had to watch
I know.
all this.
And watch it after 6 years. So the excitement isn't even. I mean, of course, even 6 years after this, still.
And it's still good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's still
A lot of the
I
classic
still watch
stuff.
that promo commercial. I've seen that promo commercial with the Limp Bizkit song over it with The Rock versus Stone Cold. To this day, I've watched it probably 6 or 7 times. Just the promo.
Okay, so like in December of '97, Vince McMahon aired a promo on Raw's War addressing the audience on the company embarking on a more innovative and contemporary campaign, which would advise parent discretion. So this is when they started, instead of it being what it was before, they were like, hey, we're getting a little edgy.
Yeah.
We're going to have blood.
Vince McMahon says the N-word in one of their
Does he really?
backstage things.
He goes up to him. He's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Wow."
No, yeah, and he was just like, he was saying that being around him or something is making him more urban or something like that, just something really racist. And then he was like, all right, I'll see you later, ma. And then he says it, and the guy, I can't, it was Sheldon Benjamin.
Was it Benjamin?
Sheldon Benjamin?
Sheldon Benjamin.
He was
He
like-
said that to him, and he was just like,
Did he still have blonde hair?
Vince McMahon just walked off like he was cool.
Did he have blonde hair then too?
Yeah, it was when he had blonde hair.
Okay.
The video that I saw, it was.
So after this logo was introduced, this kind of leads, like shortly after that logo was introduced, this is when we were talking about Bret Hart.
Uh-huh.
So Bret Hart, the whole issue with him is that McMahon said he could no longer afford to pay that contract, and suggested that he go back to that other deal because, like you said, he had all this other talent that he had to start paying because now they were getting popular. So he's like, hey, you should go, take that money. It's we can't. You know, they deserve you. We don't deserve you anymore.
Yeah.
That's exactly how he put it too, man. He sold him on it like that all the way.
But so like this whole situation resulted in the Montreal Screwjob, which is what everyone knows about when it comes to Bret Hart. So he was defending his titles, WWF World Heavyweight Championship, against Shawn Michaels at the Survivor Series in '97.
Yeah.
And McMahon ordered the referee to award the match and the championship to Michaels as if Hart had submitted. So like when you watch it, they literally just like wrestling, doing something on the ground, and then that's it. They call it, and then McMahon comes down there, and you could tell like something was up, and no one, and it was in it was in Canada, which is where he's from, so it was awful. Oh yeah, it was booing. Everyone was getting real
that
mad.
Belt. That was the whole
Especially
thing.
there. It's more of if he wanted to lose it anywhere.
So neither of them
there.
knew, or just the ref knew, or what?
Well,
what was
McMahon knew, and the ref was going to call it. Shawn Michaels may have known, but he probably, it's they kind of just go with it. Like,
Oh, I
don't know what the
but
word.
did Bret Hart?
I don't
was
think
he
he
aware?
knew.
No, Bret Hart didn't know, and Shawn Michaels. There was the small group. It was Shawn, McMahon, the ref,
Pop.
and there
Pop.
was
You gotta come up on
I'm
your
sorry.
mic. dog.
And then you've got I'm getting a little too comfortable over here.
That's good.
And the other was the fourth person was Jerry Briscoe, who Jerry Briscoe was McMahon's right hand man at the time. So those four knew about it.
What was gonna
And
happen.
literally, like if I can remember, Shawn wasn't told until maybe within a few hours. It was less than 24 hours before it was going to happen. So they it was
Yeah, it's really not. It made a bad look on the WWF and McMahon and them, but of course, McMahon being who he is, he used that to his advantage.
he did.
So he made it
Ultimate
like that. So
promoter.
he literally made that whole backlash situation turn him into his character,
Yeah.
which
Mr.
was
McMahon.
Mr. McMahon, bad guy.
Yeah,
guy
Mr.
character.
McMahon was completely separate from Vince McMahon. They
Yeah.
were two different characters.
Vince McMahon's a genius.
Vince
man.
McMahon
was the business guy, and then there was Mr. McMahon.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was so. Everything that he was in was fantastic.
Yes.
He
so
was-
funny.
Yes.
But he came from a line of like they were in that. Of course, the whole family has been in it, so
Yeah.
he knows he's been around it. Is
And
literally
it was
his
like
whole
he
life.
was like
Yeah.
a parody of the average heel. It seemed
Yeah.
like he was just everything you knew about a heel. He was just over the top about
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
Basically
why
put
it was so
a
funny.
heel as the owner, and then he was just like, I can do that,
Yeah.
and then he did.
Is
But then
this-
like behind the scenes, he's just a dude. But
So-
then he's like, I can be bad.
So this is when the whole "you're fired" thing
That-
started.
That's the character. Literally
Okay.
everything from then on, like everything
the
that
Kiss
you've
My
heard.
Ass Club
Yes.
stuff.
And then you get into a lot of McMahon and Stone Cold. That's where they started taking off, right? And they went on about a 2-year run.
Oh yeah,
They went
that
on
was
about a
great.
2-year run
Stone
with that
Cold
storyline.
filled his Corvette up with cement.
Yeah.
That was some good stuff.
And then the whole attacking him in the hospital with the bedpan.
That's
and all
really a
that,
classic.
yeah.
Look at him upside the head. He goes. falls over. And I will say he is really good at selling
Selling
as
it?
a wrestler.
Yeah.
He
Even though he's
is.
not, which I mean,
That's
well,
the
kinda
thing.
he
It
is a
was like it
wrestler.
was
Yeah.
so meta because you're like he's clearly faking it, but at the same time you believed it.
You're like, by God, he killed him.
Hey Sahil, you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right, cool. Hey, everybody,
Nice.
Sahil's still here, guys.
Oh.
For all of our audio listeners, Sahil is here.
No, I mean, I started watching wrestling in like the 3rd or 4th grade, which was like
Your granddad's big into it.
big into it. And
Yeah.
even though he can't speak English.
Yeah.
You told him that wrestling was fake, he would disown you from the family.
Oh, 100%.
Oh,
Wait.
No,
man.
that's how my brother broke it to me one day. He's like, you know that shit's fake, right? And I was like, no, it's not.
What do you
You
mean?
don't even know.
Listen,
Oh no, Tucker.
no, this is no joke. One of my best friends growing up, his granddad had a heart attack and almost died one Saturday night watching Georgia Championship Wrestling. So I talked to Jimmy, his granddad's like a month later, and the doctor says, hey, man, you cannot, this is like, late 70s, early 80s. The doctor says, look, you cannot watch wrestling again. It's bad for your health. You get too excited, blah, blah, blah. So I'm over at Jimmy's house one day, and I say, hey, man, what's your granddad building back there? So I don't know, man, he's building some little garage or something back there. This thing was literally like 5 foot by 5 foot, and all of a sudden you see this power line, like you guys don't understand, like old school, like where you got power lines that come.
Yeah.
Everyone's running from the top of the house to this shed, and we're like, man, what the heck's he doing out there?
Building a person
Saturday
in there.
night, man, literally that thing fit about a 12-inch to 14-inch TV and a stool, and he sat out there, and we would watch that thing because he'd get so mad and get to jumping around. We'd
It
see
would
that
shake.
thing. We'd see it shake. Jimmy said, hey, man, that's what he likes. If he dies, he dies.
He
So,
died doing what he loves.
All right, it's on you, buddy.
He just dug
It's on you.
a grave behind him, like just in case.
He
Like, I
just
already got
passes
it.
out.
Just
like a
drag
cartoon.
him
He
out.
just falls
Just
right into
drag
his
him
grave.
out. But that was my point of that, was that, I mean, that's how real it was back then. Nobody knew. I mean, I saw Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen break Dusty Rhodes' arm outside the studio one Saturday. And, man, it was literally like we
And
went to a
hold-
party
you
that
were-
Saturday night, and everybody is furious. They're ready to kill Ric Flair because he broke Dusty Rhodes' arm. Man,
Broke.
everybody
Oh,
believed
you were
it.
at a club or something? What did you say? You were at a bar?
No, I was at a party.
You were at
later
a
on that
party.
night,
Y'all
yeah.
were watching it at the
No,
party.
we had seen it because back then, I should say this, on Saturday nights, wrestling came on at 6 in the evening.
Yeah.
It was from 6 to 8. So, I mean, yeah, we'd sit around, watch wrestling at 8 o'clock. We were ready to roll, man. It was,
Okay, so
yeah.
Got
it
that-
sounded like you were like there when he
Got
broke.
that-
No, we were watching it.
Okay.
And like when we got together that night, all of us were like, man, did you see what he did? Can you
Yeah.
believe that? And
Yeah.
everybody's pissed.
Yeah.
Because Dusty's got a broke arm, man.
Yeah.
But then,
Flair.
like Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair hanging out afterwards.
But
drinking a
exactly,
beer.
but that's
Yeah.
how real it was back then, man. Everybody believed it. Man, he broke the mold on it.
It's a big deal to a lot of people.
It's
Big deal.
Still to this day.
Yeah.
Still to this
Like
day.
my grandpa, like every day it's habitual.
They're very kid friendly now, but it's still. I love just watching old videos.
Product's soft now. It's
Yeah.
real soft. You
Yeah.
can you know.
There's
Hey,
still
dude.
some good. There's still some good stuff. But
With how
it's definitely-
sensitive
It
the society is now,
Oh,
they would
man.
never get away with what they
No.
did.
I
Vince
mean,
McMahon
when-
said the N word on national television,
And
dude.
we're talking about when the Attitude Era. You'd have no idea what they were doing to women back then.
I
mean,
know.
they had Trish Stratus out there on all
Just
four
naked.
legs in the ring, barking like a dog.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that stuff. You
Now
try
we
that
cringe.
nowadays.
Yeah, now we cringe
That's
because you
cringy.
know there's
back
a,
then they were like,
there's
yeah.
a
And
gaggle of women just screaming.
I'm trying to think. They did a skit one time, and it was right there towards the end of the Attitude Era where, what's McMahon's wife's Linda? Linda's like got Alzheimer's, and she's staring at a wall in a nursing home, and Vince brings Trish over there, like she's the nurse or something. And I mean, they're like tonguing each other down.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's bad.
Right there in front of Linda, and she's staring off into space.
Oh no.
When he's the boss,
That
I
is
guess you can-
offensive to every group of people. That's horrible.
In '97, it wasn't offensive.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, speaking of 97 going into 98, this is like I mentioned before, Stone Cold was really starting to begin like his rise
yeah.
into stardom. And during an angle involving Mike Tyson at WrestleMania 14 in March of 98, Austin became the champion by beating Shawn Michaels, giving rise to the Austin era and the despotic Mr. McMahon character. That began like a long-lasting feud with him. And this was this basically turned the tides of ratings into their favor during this time because really I think Vince McMahon really, if it wasn't for his character, I mean, there's no telling what would have happened because they were still losing in ratings to WCW at the time. So with his introduction of himself, he's just like, well, if no one else can do it, I'll do it, and then he just turns into a bad guy, and everyone loves to hate the bad guy.
Yeah.
So
He
and
led
it basically
he led the charge.
and it turned Steve Austin from a heel to a babyface, and now he's like the good guy, but he's still like a bad guy at the same time. But he's not as bad as Vince McMahon.
And that had been like Monday Night Nitro had gone on about an 18-month run of winning those ratings wars, and at that time there was literally like 10 million people, but on Monday nights tuning into wrestling across the country, to over 10 million, and that really was like the peak. I mean, and even now they talk about wrestling. Oh, there's a renaissance and it's coming back, and you got New Japan, and you've got Ring of Honor, and you've got TNA, and you've got WWE, and
you get the Lucha.
You got Lucha Underground. You've got so much out there now, and it is, but it'll never be what it was back then. They hit a high that it'll be. I'm saying never, but it'll be hard to duplicate what they did back then. Yeah.
So after Austin becomes champion, like later on, they start to add more new talent, like The Rock, Triple H, Mick Foley, and Kane. They really started to strengthen the singles division at this time. They weren't necessarily new, but I say new to the stardom. So once they really started to strengthen their singles division, there also was like we mentioned, D-Generation X, and then Nation of Domination, were another like two big like tag team like groups factions that started to form, and they actually started to help fight against rival company WCW. And these moves also helped WWE increase their ratings. Like you said, they beat out Nitro for the first time in 83 weeks on April 13th, 1998, and they continued to rise. And on June 28th, 1999, Steve Austin and Undertaker had a match that would garner a 9.5 rating, which still stands as the highest rated match in Raw history ever. And that's just like literally a classic. Of one, like literally two of the biggest stars of the 90s, and even early 2000s, and Undertaker, I mean, he's still around in a capacity.
So it's
still like insane.
Yeah, what?
All right.
Yeah. But yeah.
Just checking in.
So, but yeah, like that match literally set them up to continue like for the rest of the time. And a big event that actually happened during this time was an injury to Austin during his match that led him to having a serious neck injury, which he was plagued with. His knees are literally like, if they don't have braces on them, which you'll see if you watched, you saw where he didn't have braces on his knees, and then now he had braces on his knees like years later into it, because his knees and his neck and just. That's just why he does not come back and help, because they have a lot of older Steve Austin.
He's just not capable of doing it. That neck, and Owen Hart actually did that. Applied that pile driver. And you can see, and I've seen that replay a million times, and you can see when he's got him up, his head's down below Owen's knees. So you're like, oh God, this ain't gonna be good. So
everyone knows that's taboo. You're not supposed to be that low. Yeah, they know they make it seem real, but they know what not to do.
He was still able to go about another 30 seconds to a minute after that.
He was like, hey.
And then finally, they just wind it down. Owen rolls him up and gets out of the ring. But I remember when I saw that night happen, I thought, man, I love Stone Cold, and God, I hope he can come back. Because they were saying that was career threatening, and he probably wouldn't come back, which he did.
So when did I know? Speaking of like knee injuries and stuff, I was just thinking about Vince McMahon when he just got out of like surgery, and they told him not to walk for a while, and he jumped into the ring, and then just his knees shattered again, and he fell to his knees, and he's still in character, just on his knees in agonizing pain. Do you remember when that was? Do you remember that at all?
I can't. I remember seeing it, but I can't remember when it was.
Is this around that time? Probably not.
I think it's after.
It's later.
I'm thinking it was after, because I'm thinking that would have been like early 2000s.
Because he was talking about it, and it was like the doctor, he just got out of surgery like the day before, and the doctor's like, well, don't walk for a few months. Don't walk for a few months. He does his walk all the way down to the ring, jumps up on the ring, falls to his legs, and he's still like yelling at him from his knees, like looking up at him and stuff, and they couldn't do anything about it.
He's bulletproof, man. Billionaire, man.
With injuries, though, they usually do a good or a good way of using injuries that happen, because everyone gets injured. You can look at Seth Rollins from I think 2014 or 15, whenever he like tore. He really hurt. Like he tore his what's in your knee? ACL.
Yeah.
ACL. He tore his. You could see it too, because he literally picked. I can't remember who it was. He picked him up on the turn.
God, I want to say it was Kane, man. I swear somebody big like Kane.
This was in like a house show. So it happened in a house show.
Yeah.
It wasn't on TV.
I'm almost positive it was Kane.
If it was on TV, it would have been real bad. Because there's been injuries that people can see on TV, but he literally just picked him up from the thing, and you see his knee just buckle and just give out. You're like, oof.
Speaking
Yeah.
of injuries on television, didn't Owen? I was gonna ask you, Owen Hart, when he died, he fell from the rafters.
Yes.
Well,
on
his
television.
neck got caught.
Yeah.
So
His
he
neck
hung
got-
himself,
Oh.
and that
On
was
ac- well, it wasn't on
shown. Was that
accident.
on a live event?
Yes, that was at a live event, and actually, you know, they when he fell and hit the turnbuckle on his chest, and that's what he died of, was blunt force trauma.
So it wasn't.
that was
he
in
didn't
May
hang
of
himself.
90. That was in May of '99. It was in
So
May
that's
of
come
99.
that. So he's still alive at the point that we're talking.
Yeah.
About. Okay.
No, yeah, but I mean,
But
I
I
don't
would-
really go into mention his death. You know, sometimes I don't. Really
I
like
know, but
mentioning
I
that.
was just wondering if it was on a live show
Yeah.
and like you see him die.
It was at it was on a pay-per-view, and I cannot remember what pay-per-view it was. It was whatever one they were running in May of every year back then.
SummerSlam
But
or
they
something?
kept the pay-per-view going, and that was real back then. That was real. You know, everybody
can't do- yeah.
everybody thought that was just, you know, they should have shut it down and all that.
Unprofessional.
But McMahon's, I mean, he's old school, man. The
yeah.
show goes on.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
show goes on.
Oh, he died.
There's
Well,
another-
he can
But
shake
they-
it off.
well, there's
They
another-
did. They did
Walk
like
it
a,
off.
they did the next night on Raw though. I think at that time Raw was just 2 hours, so the whole show was about Owen Hart. You know, and I mean,
Yeah.
and I remember I was in Augusta, Georgia, because in my job at the time I was in sales and I was traveling and I was watching that in a hotel in
Ugh.
Augusta. It
Ugh.
was crazy. I remember Triple H and China sitting there boo-hooing as they were talking, you know, about him and
Yeah.
everything, because DX was, you know, they were right in the middle of their heyday when all that was going on.
See, I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, that Blue Blazer. He was actually playing a character called the Blue Blazer at the time.
Yeah. Died in the ring.
No, yeah, it's a lot of which a lot of people don't really realize. A lot there's like it's real.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's fake. You know,
Yeah.
it's fake.
It's
they act.
rehearsed and stuff.
It's rehearsed
but-
and scripted, but all the actions of it are real, so you never know what's going to happen.
And
Yeah.
that's another thing why it would be so hard for them to be able to top what they did back then, because when you talk about like Hell in a Cell with Mick Foley and Undertaker,
Mick
when
Foley's
Mick
whole
Foley
body.
takes the dive that everybody's seen off that
Yeah.
cage, he should have died. You
Yeah.
know, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
didn't. Like, it's a miracle. Like, he had a 1%
That's
chance
that
of survival.
adrenaline.
and
Probably he probably
survived.
would have died if his adrenaline wasn't
and
so
then
high.
then climbs back to the top of that cage again, so Undertaker could power slam him right through the
Through.
cage, you know, and him land on his back,
Mick
and he's sitting there
Foley-
choking on his teeth. You know, his
Yo,
teeth are popping
yeah,
through his
but
nose.
don't ever
and
ask
like
him to
some of his
smile.
teeth were coming out of his nose.
Yeah.
Don't ask
You
him
know.
to smile.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Santa Claus, because Mick Foley's apparently a Santa Claus now at malls and stuff.
And he writes. And he
He's
writes.
obsessed with Christmas. There's a whole documentary about Mick Foley being obsessed with Christmas and a bunch of like Santa Clauses. But yeah, he does like Santa Claus stuff, and like just seeing him walk around is painful to watch.
And now a shout out to DDP Yoga.
DDP
All
Yoga.
Those
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
are on
Diamond
DDP
Dallas-
Diamond
Yoga,
Dallas-
and like
yeah,
even
Diamond
Foley
Dallas Page.
lost about 60 or 70 pounds off
Yeah.
of it, and I think he's down about 100 now. But
Jake
all
the
those
Snake.
guys say they can't move when they're done, you know. And now, you know, they're doing DDP
Diamond
Yoga
Dallas
and can
Page.
actually move. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should have said that. That's Diamond Dallas Page. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
I knew what you. I saw. I
Diamond
heard
Dallas
DDP,
Page
I was
is
like, I
what-
know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
That's what DDP is.
Yeah.
Diamond Dallas Page.
But so like with the injury part, like I was saying, they do really good at trying to they work it in
Yeah.
somehow. So when Austin got hurt, they it's kind of really dumb, but he got ran over by a limousine on the show. So which basically just gave him a time to heal, which almost a year.
Yeah.
Where they later revealed that it was Rikishi that did it. Everyone doesn't know who Rikishi is. Literally his signature move is like what, stink face.
He would rub
He
his
slams
butt.
them in a corner and just shakes his butt
Shakes
in
his-
their face, like
Yeah.
his crack is in their nose.
Put a whole new
And
meaning
just-
to eating ass.
And he has the world's biggest rear end
Yeah,
that you
no
have
man
ever
has a-
seen on a grown man.
Dude, no man has a butt that big.
Bigger,
You
yeah.
could sit
Yeah.
There is
a beer bottle
cellulite
on
on
top
those
of it.
cheeks, because I mean he would already wear, like, he kind
It
of
looked
brought
like
in
a
the, like the
boulder.
women wear those little half moon shaped.
He wore like
underwear.
a sumo
He was
little
doing
like,
that like 20
kinda
years ago.
outfit, but it was like a one piece, but it looked
Yeah.
like it had
Yeah.
little tassels on the side.
He would take
Yeah.
that thing, man, and he'd take his time, pull one side up real high, and pull the other side up real
outfit-
high, and then he'd go in.
His outfit kind of looked like a little kid trying to put together a superhero outfit, and then he just went out in the ring that way.
Like there goes Rikishi.
Oh, there he goes,
Little
there.
Rikishi.
Little
We
Rikishi. He's
love
like
Rikishi.
he's like 3 years old, but he's
Same
the si- He
size.
looks like Sahil.
No, he's the same size now.
yeah, yeah.
He's just a big boy.
giant.
No,
He's
I'm
a
gonna,
growing
I'm gonna
boy.
bring something up about like collisions just real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's There's a Duke freshman player named
Yeah.
Zion Williamson.
Oh, I heard
Yeah.
Oh
those.
yeah.
We know
So,
Zion.
a physicist with the Wall Street Journal said that taking a charge from him is the same exact force as taking a head-on collision with a Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A train wreck, man.
He's
Yeah. Car wreck
285
every time.
pounds. There's only one person in the NBA who weighs more than that, and he's a freshman in college.
285.
And can move like he can move.
But just
too.
think,
move like
compare
LeBron
that to
James.
Yeah.
wrestlers. They get hit.
And they've said like every match, it's literally like you're taking on 30 car crashes every match throughout your
And
career.
you're wrestling every single day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Back then, you would wrestle twice on Saturday and Sunday, so
Yeah.
you're wrestling 9 times a week.
Those guys are going, man.
So, but like after he came back, which is really this part started the rivalry between him and The Rock. So once he came back, he actually ended up fighting or won the Royal Rumble that year, and then The Rock won the title at the same event, but not in the Royal Rumble. So of course, like for those that don't know, the winner of the Royal Rumble, which usually is in like January, will end up facing the champion of their choice in WrestleMania. So that's set up for The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin to fight at WrestleMania, where Stone Cold ended up winning the title. So that was like this whole thing basically made him a fan favorite, but also like an enemy to a lot of fans. It was on both sides because The Rock was like a heel, babyface kind of style, and then Austin was the same thing. They could both go back and forth.
They perfectly
Yep.
sat right in the middle
yes.
of it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, like they like literally like their whole thing just set up
Dude,
WWF forever.
God, The Rock's promos were so.
He's
They were
really good.
gold,
Funny,
man. They were
dude.
Yeah,
gold.
which I mean that just him now as an actor just kind of plays into that. He improv just
so good.
he can do anything.
So
he
good.
can. He was. I mean, he is. I mean, he's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time. I mean, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He already is.
He
Is he in
is.
the Hall of Fame yet?
Probably,
He's
I
not-
would assume. Well, I don't know because he came back and
he's-
wrestled for a little
no,
bit.
because
Yeah,
that
he's
one
still
will be
wrestling.
huge when he goes
Oh
in.
yeah. That'll be at like an anniversary of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Or something.
But so after their whole feud, when the ratings increased, this started the Alliance Invasion. So this whole Alliance Invasion. So for the sake of making the story interesting, Shane McMahon came into power at WCW,
Right.
which
okay,
is
that-
this was all K-fob. For those that don't know what K-fob means, it's like it's portrayed as real, but it's like everyone knows it's
Yeah.
fake.
Yeah.
It's just portrayed as like
like wrestling all together.
yeah, also yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like certain events, I guess K-fob is just in everything, but
But so the WWE bought the WCW.
yeah, this is
right?
like behind the
And-
scenes.
Okay, and then Shane took over the WCW
Took-
while Vince
yeah.
Yep.
Vince was running WWE.
So he took control of WCW, and they invaded WWF in April of 2001, which created a feud, quote unquote, between the companies. So they were already bought. Like this whole thing is already done. Many believe this event to be a little disappointing because many of the stars from WCW at the time didn't want to come over and do anything. So they used a lot of like their smaller stars because they were still a lot of the wrestlers were still under control of their parent company in WCW.
Yeah.
So they couldn't just like do whatever they wanted. So they were fine with just sitting and not doing anything and making money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were all on guaranteed contracts
Yep.
with Turner, because Ted Turner owned in WCW. Yeah, those guys, they were sitting around
Which
making
is why
money.
they were on
and
TNT.
very few of those guys transitioned over. I mean, even Goldberg didn't make it that long, you know?
I mean, he's definitely, well, of course, he came back for a little bit.
About a
this
year.
past
Yeah, this past last
WrestleMania.
year.
Not this one, but the year before.
Yeah, yeah.
He came back, which I didn't like it. That's actually whenever I was watching for a little bit. I didn't like his whole. I think it was very
Nah.
boring. Him and Brock Lesnar were just
Yeah.
very boring. But so in July of 2001, Stephanie McMahon purchased. This was again K-fob, ECW, and brought ECW back. And so that lit ECW and WCW, they combined their forces to create the alliance. And so they would come and fight. And
ECW was like
ECW was my favorite of all time.
Yeah, I like
I mean,
ECW.
Wild.
ECW, when it first came out, it was on the Nashville Network on TNN on Friday nights at 11 o'clock. And back then, you had a VCR. You know?
Yeah.
So I would record that every Friday night, and it was the best hour of TV of the entire week.
Yeah, that
it was
was where all
incredible.
the blood
and that's where
violence
McMahon
stuff.
got the idea of, okay, we're going to step away from this PG and we're going to get a little edgy. And he got all that came from Paul Heyman
That was Paul
and
Heyman.
ECW.
Yeah.
Man, those guys are that was the best ever.
That was where they
No. Heyman, I'm sorry. Heyman.
He likes this stuff.
I know Heyman can promote. Like Vince McMahon is the most unbelievable promoter of all time, and Heyman is about that much better.
Below.
He
Yep.
could take the four of us, and the world would think we were the baddest dudes on the planet. I mean, he was
I'm
just.
pretty
I mean,
bad.
I mean,
I've
he would
always
be
thought
right.
that anyway.
He
but I
would be
mean,
right, for
I think
sure.
he could make it legit.
We would make it. I mean, we already made it easy for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has he seen me? You seen me?
There's a lot more to us than beauty.
That's right.
Seriously, come on.
That's right.
So in the aftermath of the invasion angle, WWF made a lot of major changes to their product. Ric Flair returned. At this point, he was kind of like in and out until he was gone, but he actually came back and became a co-owner of the company, and he was feuding with Vince McMahon. And then Jerry Lawler also returned to the company, which everyone knows Jerry Lawler, which I don't really like him, but he's a good he's a good ring commentator.
he's good on
I
that.
just don't like. I don't know. I just don't really like him in general.
Wait,
And,
was it
He's just kind of a boring.
Was it a publicly traded company at this time? Like, did
Yes.
it suck yet?
Yeah, you could get stocks and stuff in this. I was gonna mention it, but I thought going into money details wasn't.
I love how we've brought up the things that you didn't want to bring
Yeah,
up.
I know. I was like, I thought it was like, yeah, it's kind of boring. But then a lot of
Yeah.
the stuff I was not gonna brought up, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for the content. But also, I didn't even know this. Paul Heyman was a ring announcer. I didn't really think about it at the time, but he was. But Paul Heyman was actually fired on screen by Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
several former Alliance stars were absorbed into the regular WWF roster, like Booker T, Hurricane, Lance Storm, Rob Van Dam.
Booker T really was the one of all of them that came over. He's the one that made the most of it.
Another
Yeah.
man who said the N-word on national television.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he
he
can
has.
actually say it.
He can say it.
He
Yeah,
can
that's
say
fine.
it. That's
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah.
He said, "Hulk Hogan, I'm coming for you," and then he says it, and then you see him go, and he whispers to the girl next to him. He's like, "I just said the N-word on national television,"
Yeah.
and she was just like, "It's all right, babe."
It was Sherry Martel.
Yeah.
So to kind of more close out the Attitude Era, one of the real big events at the time was at Vengeance in 2001 when Chris Jericho went on to unify the WCW Championship and WWF Championship by beating both The Rock and Steve Austin on the same night, which is insane because literally Chris Jericho's good. I mean, he's still even a good character now, but that match.
That and Jericho, like nobody can continuously reinvent themselves and
Oh,
keep themselves
he's
fresh
literally-
like Jericho. And Jericho's like 40. I'm gonna say he's 46, 47. You know, I mean, he may be a
now?
little. Yeah, because I'm thinking me and him are close to. I'm older than him, but I'm thinking we're close. But continuously reinvent himself, and if you guys ever get a chance, you have got to read. He's got 2 or 3 books out,
Yeah.
and they are absolutely the most hilarious books you will ever read.
There's always some.
He's
good
in a
stories.
band too.
Also,
also,
and Fozzy, yeah.
Fozzie's
But-
actually pretty good.
Very
pretty
good, very good, because they used Stuck Mojo back in like the '90s. Stuck Mojo, that's who Fozzy is Stuck Mojo with Jericho lead singer.
We got roughly 10 or 15 minutes, just so you know.
Okay, and then I'm just gonna. But if you guys ever get a chance, you gotta read Chris Jericho's books because it is so full of just self-deprecating humor, and it's about just his life and the run that he made, and he is very self-aware of his strengths and his weaknesses. Hilarious book, man. They're awesome.
Yeah, no, I love Chris Jericho. Like even like his little heel
I
stuff.
don't care for him now. I like.
Well,
him
his
now.
heel stuff
Never.
recently with him and Kevin Owens, like I liked him and Kevin Owens as a tag team. even
They were
though
good.
They were actually pretty good. They
Yeah.
worked well with each other.
And that, but he said too, like, you know, the list. If he ever comes back, he'll never do the list again.
I love
you
the
know,
list.
I love
The
the
list
list.
was
Man,
really
the
funny.
list was incredible.
If they got Stone Cold to read the
But
list,
I
that
never
would've
was the
been better.
biggest Jericho fan either until I read those books. And man, he is
Just a good guy.
He is hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So to kind of, like I was saying before, to kind of close out this era, Vince McMahon actually brought back Hollywood, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall to reunite the NWO at No Way Out, which was a pay-per-view in
PayPal.
February of 2002. However, the storyline provided, it was like really unpopular with fans, and Hogan soon turned face at WrestleMania 18
Yeah.
after his classic match with The Rock. And then on March 25th, 2002 edition of Raw, the World Wrestling Federation had the first time ever WWF Draft Lottery, which meant the WWF superstars are separated between two brands,
Yeah.
which at the time was Raw and SmackDown, which I didn't really mention the inclusion of SmackDown, but they just added another show to kind of go head-to-head with WCW at the time, which I think there was like Thunder or something.
Thunder, it was, yeah.
So they basically just made another show, same color too. I'm
And
pretty sure Thunder was
was
blue.
Thunder
so
was
they just
terrible.
copied- yeah.
Thunder was terrible.
So I'm pretty
man.
sure they just copied the color, but so just this whole draft lottery, which became really popular, going forward, was kind of to signify the end of the Attitude Era and moved more into the Ruthless Aggression Era, which goes into one of my favorite wrestlers, which we'll get to on the next episode.
What about Scott Steiner though?
I actually thought I had him on here, but I didn't. But
He's not
Scott
on
Steiner is a good one to talk about in the Attitude Era, and you have to listen to this very unique promo that he did.
Say all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Small Joe, and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best at beating me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down. See, the three-way at sacrifice, you got a 33 and a third chance of winning. But I got a 66 and two-thirds chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows
He
can't
knows.
beat me, and he's not even going to try. So, Samoa Joe, you take your 33 and a third chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 and a third chance of winning at sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning. If we used to go one-on-one and then add 66 and two-thirds percent, I got 141 and two-thirds chance of winning at sacrifice. See, Joe.
Senior Joe.
And they spell disaster for you at sacrifice.
But so you've got to be, if you could see the video of him doing,
Definitely look it up.
saying that,
I'm gonna
of him
put.
doing that
I'm gonna
promo.
send Alex a link, and we're gonna put it in the description so that if you guys want to watch that video, it's just there's nothing there. It's just the math that
His
he's
mouth
doing.
sound.
It's literally what it sounded like it, but if you watch the video,
It's
it is not.
hilarious, man. God.
That is literally prime Attitude Era promo.
Yes.
A lot of them.
Yes.
Senior Joe.
Senior Joe.
Senior Joe.
Oh, he has no idea. He's just getting all caught up on his words.
God, I
so
loved
funny.
it. Love it.
Yeah, so that's basically the end of the New Generation and Attitude Era. So is there anything else anyone wants to kind of add on their thoughts to the end of the era?
I think I got everything.
What is the end of the era, like the definitive year?
It's like,
Like
2002.
2002 kind of starts the Ruthless
right after
Aggression era.
9/11?
This right here was something too I had forgotten. 2002 was when WWF went to WWE because the World Wildlife Federation won their lawsuit against World Wrestling Federation, so they had to change the name. So 2002 they changed to WWE, and the whole marketing campaign was "We're getting the F out." We're getting the F out.
Smart.
So they pushed that for about 6 months hard. Yeah.
Well, all right, so that is everything.
All right, I want to thank Dad for coming to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you,
love
Dad.
you guys. Love the show. Listen, you guys have been hovering around that 48, 49 views on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're
trying to bump those
We're breaking
numbers.
50.
We're breaking 50
We're
today,
punching through
baby.
the sky with
That's
this
right.
one.
That's right.
No, but yeah, we're going to have a little bit more at the top of the show than we did this week. It was just this week we had so much to talk about with the Attitude Era. So it's a lot of info this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment down below what you want us to talk about after we get done with the WWE series. We love you, and thank you.
Also, thank you to All the Rest for the song, and check out their new single, For You.
Yep.
We love those guys.
Bless.
Sweet.